Hey, good morning. This is Danny with the Christian Metal Ministry, and I'm glad to have you with us here this morning. As of today, August the 19th, Indiana is still dealing with a major recovery. Recent reporting says that at least 7 people have died in Indiana from the results of these storms and flooding that has came through that area. As of this morning, nearly 90,000 Indiana customers are still without power and more than 73,000 in Lake County. Powerful storms tore across the Midwest, and at the height of the initial outbreak, nearly 1 million homes and businesses were without electricity. Indiana was hit especially hard, and more than a week later, tens of thousands are still waiting for the power to return. So when the storms leave nothing standing, what's next? You see, there are moments when words feel too small. No matter what you say, it just doesn't seem like it either helps or encourages. A tornado doesn't ask whether you're ready or not. Floodwaters doesn't care how long you've lived there in your home. A falling tree doesn't know whose bedroom lies beneath it when it falls. And when the storm finally passes, the silence can almost be as frightening as the thunder. Across the Midwest, families have recently faced exactly that kind of devastation. Powerful storms beginning on August 11 tore across parts of Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and the surrounding states, bringing tornadoes, devastation, destructive winds, torrential downpours, flash flooding, and massive power failures. And at the height of the initial outbreak, nearly 1 million customers across the Midwest were reported without electricity. I've seen this on a lot of my social medias where people were posting reels and their normal posts about being without electricity. Day 9, day 10. And it's devastating when you hear these reels, these people talking, or even read what's going on in these areas. But numbers don't tell the whole story, because behind every number, there is somebody's home, somebody's family, somebody's life. Indiana was hit hard. Indiana was hit hard, especially the brutal stretch of this whole storm. Storms and subsequent floodings have killed at least 7 people in Indiana. Communities have experienced evacuations, water rescues, damaging roads. Flooded homes, there's been widespread destruction, roads, bridges washed away. Parts of the state received more than 11 inches of rain in 2 days, and sections of the White River reached records level. But one of those who died was a 4-year-old boy in Jennings County after a tree crushed onto his family's home. Now think about that for a moment. 4 years old, not a weather statistic, but that's somebody's child. A family woke up one morning with their child in their lives, and then all of a sudden everything changes. There are families throughout these communities who aren't asking when their electricity will return. They're facing something far greater. Someone they love isn't coming home. You see, when people went to bed expecting another ordinary night, then the warnings came. The winds began screaming, the winds began to pick up, sirens sounded, trees came down, you could hear the rain beating up against the house or on the roof. Power lines began to fall. Water started rising. Families moved into basements and interior rooms in their homes. Emergency crews, they went into conditions most people were desperately trying to escape. In northern Indiana, the storms on August 11 brought winds approaching 100 miles per hour around Gray, Indiana. Usually they're called straight line winds or derechos. Hundreds of thousands lost electricity across Indiana and neighboring areas as a severe weather system tore through the region, leaving a path of destruction. And after the wind came, then the water. Flooding became catastrophic in portions of Indiana. Hundreds were evacuated while rescue crews used boats to reach people that were trapped by the rising water. For those watching from another state, it's easy to see pictures, watch the reels on social media, read about it on your social media post. But then most people see it, read it, and they scroll on. But the people living there can't scroll past it. It's outside their front door. Whenever tragedy strikes, somebody eventually asks, where was God? That's not necessarily rebellion. Sometimes it's the cry of somebody standing in the wreckage. Christianity does not promise us that following Jesus creates a force field around us and protects us and our homes. The Bible never promises Christians a life without tornadoes, floods, diseases, accidents, grief, or even death. In fact, Jesus told us something very different. You see, in Matthew 5:45, he reminds us that the sun rises upon both the evil and the good, and rain falls upon the righteous and unrighteous. We live in a world where suffering touches everyone. But Scriptures also tells us God does not abandon us in suffering. You see, Psalms 46 declares God to be our refuge and strength, present with us in trouble. But notice what that doesn't say. It doesn't say trouble won't come. It says he is there when it does. You see, Jesus knows what a storm feels like. In Mark 4, suddenly the storm becomes very real when you begin to watch the severity of the weather destroy a community. Jesus and the disciples are crossing the Sea of Galilee when a violent storm strikes. The waves began crashing into the boat. The boat started filling up. Experienced fishermen became terrified and they cried out to Jesus. Then he rises and commands the storm to become still. But there's something we sometimes overlook. Jesus was in the boat before the storm stopped. The presence of the storm did not mean God had abandoned them. And sometimes that's the message somebody needs when their lives and their world has been torn apart. God hasn't forgotten you because the storm came. See, this is where Christians need to be careful. Don't walk up to somebody who has lost their home and immediately say, everything happens for a reason, or I understand how you feel. Don't tell grieving parents, God needed another angel. Human beings do not become angels when they die. And don't pretend you know why a particular tragedy happens when Scriptures hasn't told you. Sometimes ministry doesn't require an explanation. It just requires presence. When Lazarus died, Jesus knew resurrection was coming. Yeah, John 11 gives us two of the most powerful words in Scripture. Jesus wept. And there is a time to explain theology. And there is a time to explain things. And there is a time to sit back and sometimes even sit beside someone who's hurting and cry with them, a shoulder to lean on. Your presence is more powerful than saying things that shouldn't be said. Just being there means more than anything to some people. So this is where Christianity must become more than words. James challenged believers who see someone lacking basic necessities and merely tell them to go in peace without supplying what they need. Faith moves. So when our neighbors have lost electricity, help them. When somebody needs drinking water, bring it. When an elderly neighbor has no way to clear a fallen tree, show up and help. When families need food, feed them. When shelters need supplies, give. When legitimate disaster organizations need volunteers, maybe this is a time for you to help and serve. When emergency workers are exhausted, support them. When somebody needs prayer, pray with them. When someone needs just somebody there to listen to, a shoulder to lean on or to cry on, just sit down and listen. The church should never become a group of standing safely outside the wreckage, shouting Bible verses at hurting people. We enter the wreckage carrying the love of Christ. You see, the tornado doesn't care whether the destroyed church building had the words Baptist, Christian Church, Church of Christ, Methodist, Lutheran, Catholic, or something else written on its sign. Flood doesn't ask about your denomination arguments before entering someone's home and wiping it out. So when people are suffering, Christians have an opportunity to demonstrate something the world desperately needs to see. Love your neighbor. Love. What did Jesus tell us of all the three things? What did Paul say of all three in 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter? Love. Jesus even tells us to love our neighbor. Of all these greatest commandments I give you, love. Not theologically, not practically. Jesus told the story of a wounded man laying beside the road, and religious people walked right on past him, just ignoring him. Then the Samaritan stopped. He treated the man's wounds, took care of him, he transported him, he paid for his care, he became the neighbor, and telling the story, Jesus essentially gives the command, go and do likewise. You see, we see our neighbors in need or help, maybe food, something, but we just go right on by, like the religious leaders. We don't go check on our neighbors. And the heat or snow, bad weather to make sure everybody's okay. All we are concerned about is ourselves. Do I have enough food? I'm okay. Everybody else is okay. I assume. I see them walking around, and that's it. That's not Christian love. Christian love is when you put others before you, making sure they're okay and taken care of. You see, to those sitting in darkness, waiting for the electricity to come on, I've been there. A few years ago, I had a tornado, and I came through here. Well, it would have been a tornado because it ripped off trees and everything. It was spun off from the Hurricane Helene that came through here. Lost electricity, 5 days. But you know, I was thankful. Checked on my neighbors, checked on everybody, made sure everything was okay. But see, sitting in the darkness, waiting for electricity to come on, the church sees you. To the families removing ruined furniture from the flooded homes, we see you. To those who are staring at trees lying across houses and cars and don't even know, what am I going to do? We see you. To the lineman that's working hours after hours to get everybody's electricity back on so that they can have a little bit of comfort. Thank you to those linemen out there that are working endlessly, and the first responders. To the firefighters, the police officers, the paramedics, the National Guard, the emergency management teams, the utility crews, the volunteers, and ordinary neighbors who ran toward people in danger. Thank you. And to the families who lost someone. There aren't words large enough, big enough, powerful enough for that kind of grief. So, we will not pretend. We will mourn with you. Our hearts break for those who have lost loved ones, children, family members. But you see, eventually the lights will come back on. Roads will reopen. Water will recede. Trees will be cut down and cut out of the way, and roofs will be repaired. Homes will be rebuilt. But some wounds take much longer than others to heal. That's why we cannot care only while the disaster is trending. A month from now, somebody will still need help. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, somebody will remember the exact sound of that storm. Don't forget them. When the cameras and everybody leaves, they're still your neighbors. Storms remind us how quickly everything we consider permanent can change. A house can fall, electricity can disappear, possessions can be washed away. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. But tragedy also gives us an opportunity to become what Jesus commanded us to become: neighbors. So we will pray for Indiana, we will pray for Illinois, we will pray for Ohio and every community that has been battered by these storms. Pray for the grieving families, for those who are injured, for the emergency workers, and for those who are rebuilding, and for those after we have prayed. Look around and ask whether you can help. Because sometimes the answer is somebody else's prayer arrives carrying bottled water. Sometimes it arrives holding a chainsaw. Sometimes that answered prayer comes when it arrives in a hot meal. Sometimes it arrives with a financial gift. And sometimes it simply arrives to sit beside someone surrounded by everything they lost and says, you don't have to walk through this alone. The storm has passed. Now let the church move.